Hey everyone, it's Alexis. I hope you are all doing well today. I am going to be going through a variety of techniques with our Stencil and Stamp tool, all geared around the holidays. If you're like me, you are a last minute planner. So when it comes to Christmas gift giving, I'm one of those people that almost always is a procrastinator and at the last minute wants to be creative. So I got to thinking, okay, well, what are some ways I can be creative that won't take a lot of time that I know if I'm procrastinating, I'll still be able to get done. So that's kind of the inspiration behind today's making. I'm going to be going through some ideas for gift giving, some ideas for actual gifts, a few things you could do if you want to do bulk card making, and even if you're ahead of the curve and you just want to prep some scrapbook pages and then just fill them in with pictures, I've got an idea for that too. So I'm going to walk you through all those ideas and I hope you enjoy them. It is going to be using our new Stencil and Stamp tool, and if you aren't familiar with that, please head to our website. It's at sizzix.com and sizzix.co.uk. And we have a hub there that walks you through the tool itself. There's videos to watch, and it goes through all the product that we have released with it, including some of the stuff I'm going to show you today. So let's get right into some holiday making. Okay, first things first, let's talk about seasonal card making. I think that that's something that quite a few people do, and needless to say, we don't all have time to do something super intricate or time consuming, and sometimes we just need to get things done quickly, whether you have kids running around or you just are working a lot of hours or you've got family obligations, whatever it might be. We don't necessarily always have a ton of time to actually make. So what I wanted to show you was some quick, simple cards I already have done because I wanted to show you some of the effects I was using on things to give them a little bit of extra bling, and that's a really easy way to elevate a very simple kind of card if you want, that doesn't take a lot of time. Now the reason I pulled out our snowflake layered stencil is because this one is a really great one to showcase how you can actually just use one layer or layers 1 and 2, or you can use all 4. So what I wanted to show you is kind of step by step how these layer up so that you can see how you can take something like this and you could just use that alone as your card base. So this is layer 1. This is layers 1 and 2 combined. So you can see just by adding the layer 2 stencil on, it gives you a very different look. This is layers 1, 2, and 3 combined. So again, just the next layer adding a little bit more of that intricate detail. And then this final one is layers 1 through 4 combined. That final layer really adds those super small, intricate details. But you can see at each layer how beautiful and unique those snowflakes are, which is something that really lends itself to that kind of quick, easy card making, because you could do something as intricate as this and do all 4 layers and then add some of that crystal paste on top. And usually when I'm adding the crystal paste, what I'll do is I'll take my final layer and I'll take that very top layer, which is layer 1, which in this case covers quite a bit of the actual stencil. And I'll lay this back on when I'm doing this on the, I guess I have it the wrong direction. That's why it wasn't lining up. So I would lay this back on my stencil tool, take some of this crystal glaze, which I think is such a stunning effect. And you just take a palette knife. Mine is sealed at the top because I haven't cleaned it open yet. Sorry about that. There we go. I clean this usually before I start working with it. So I would just take a palette knife and I would layer this across. Pull it off, wash it immediately. Anytime that you're using these stencils and you're using a paste or acrylic paint or anything that can really kind of sit and destroy a stencil, you want to get it into water immediately. I have off to the side today a little bin full of water so that I can kind of layer anything in if I want to keep it wet while I'm still working. So all I did was put that layer on and Look how beautiful and shimmery, and it makes me just think of winter snowflakes. I love the glisten that this paste adds, and it's a great way to add just a little layer to something. You can, I think the best thing with bulk card making is you can just do all of one layer one day, and then the next do all the second layer, and then the next day do the whole third layer, and then you don't have to worry about kind of getting them off each 4 layers done each time. You can just do 1 layer a day, and then on the final day you can just add this glaze and clean it off in between it every couple if you want, and then just lay them out to dry, and then you've got a beautiful card ready to go. Add a sentiment onto it and put a card base, and you'll have them out the door in no time. Now, another one I wanted to show you is with the snowflakes. You can do really any color palette. So here's another one where I layered that crystal glaze on top. I really love this crystal glaze. It's so nice. But you can see I have the same exact card, all 4 layers. I just changed my color palette up and I got a completely different looking card. So you really can use these and customize to your colors for the year. I know sometimes like I end up going with like a theme of gift wrap for the year, and then I'm able to coordinate now my cards with them. So that is one idea that you can do by adding that crystal glaze on. Gives it a nice little extra bling. But something I have been thinking about is, okay, what if you don't want to make just one big snowflake? I mean, it is a fairly large card, and these are more, because of the size of them, these are more like the cards that you would give in person. Or I might do a really beautiful version of this and frame it in my house, or do some fussy cutting around them and turn them into hanging snowflakes. But not everyone has the time to do those kinds of cards. So it got me thinking, well, how can I bulk make these cards? So I, yesterday, went through all 4 and did all 4 of these layers. And I chose like blues and greens, so I have like a winter vibe, we'll say. But then I was kind of looking at it going, okay, that's 4 cards right there. And I'm going to show you what I mean. Let me move these out of the way. So I think what's great about these is they're pretty symmetrical. And in that sense, if you were to line these up and cut right down the middle, you've essentially turned 1 card into 2. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this into 2 cards, and I've just made sure that my line right here is lined up between the 2 tips of the snowflake points so that I get a really even cut. And now what I have is 2 different snowflake cards. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this one away to the side. There's card 2, and then I'll have card 3 and 4 right here. And then if you're really smart and you wanted to, you could space these so that you could get another one in between, and you could get 2 full snowflakes and then a half a snowflake, so you're not wasting paper. And this is my last one. I just want to make sure I've got it all lined up. Okay. So the reason I've left them long like this is so that I can flip them and stamp a sentiment if I want to. You could obviously do these with larger excess pieces on the side. You could even, if you wanted to, you could even offset them to have like a really cool look. But basically what I've just done is given myself 4 different snowflakes cards, and I'll show you a complete one. So here's one that was done with just a half, and you can see that I did this on a bigger panel. So if I wanted to do a larger kind of 12 by 12 piece of paper, I probably could get a larger square out of these, or if I just did one on each page and then left a bit more room. But essentially that's all I did was put half of a snowflake on a card, but then I went back through on a more detailed layer of that stencil and added the crystal glaze. And then I added some rhinestones in where you see these kind of dot features just to give it a little bit of an extra bling. So one way you can take your stencils and create bulk card making is literally by cutting them in half. You can do that with the holly wreath as well as some of the other ones that we have out for the holidays. Now we talked about bulk card making and ways that you can do that, and I've shown you how to do that, but not everyone's a card maker. Some of us are scrapbookers. I grew up scrapbooking, and I love the idea of being able to create my own background pattern paper, and that's the beauty of the Stencil tool. I'm going to pull that out now, and what I love about this tool is that it comes with an adapter, and the adapter allows you to move around your stencils so that you can create more customized pieces like this. So I'm going to lay this on here real quick and grab my adapter, and I'm going to add one more on so you can see kind of how the adapter works with this. Okay, so this is the adapter that comes with the tool, and essentially what these 16 holes allow is for you to move your stencil horizontally and vertically, so you can move it around a page like this and figure out where you want your stencil to lay. So I'm going to kind of maneuver this up and over a bit. Yeah, I like right there. And then I am just going to ink, and I've used probably I'm going to use like a couple different inks here, and I kind of want to actually do a different color, but let's see. What am I feeling like? You know what? We're going to do some peacock feathers, or do I want something lighter? I think I'm going to go a little bit lighter and do tumbled glass. I'm going to go lighter only because I want to be able to build other colors on top of this, and the best way to do that is to start with your lightest color on the bottom layer. So I'm just going to hold this in place because my paper is taking up so much of the sticky grid that it's not able to hold the stencil as well as I would normally have. And we're just going to go through and add on that one layer. Now, one thing I do want to point out when you are using inks with these stencils is it may not look like you've put a ton of ink on, but if I were to pull this away, I'm starting to see I'm getting a very firm color. But when I'm looking at it through the stencil, it doesn't look like I'm even really getting any color on. Now, granted, I am using a very light blue to do this, but that's the one thing about inks that I also like. They're very buildable, the colors. So you can start with a light hand and go back through with a heavy hand if you don't like the color that you have. But as you can see, it's very easy to get that final result that looks like a professional watercolored on your paper. And you can move this around any which way to get that pattern. Now, one thing I do want to reference in this is that if you are going to do this, you definitely want to make sure that you do all layers at once, because it is such a pain, I will say, to keep moving your paper around and getting them perfectly lined back up. So each area, if you're on this one, I'm only doing that bottom layer, the top layer, I should say. So I don't care. I'm going to move mine around. But if you're wanting to do all layers or multiple layers, do them all at once and then move your stencil and the stencil adapter. Just a little tip and trick for you there. You can do all one layer first and the other. It's just going to take you a little bit longer to get everything lined back up again, but at the end of the day, you're going to be able to do that. So now I'm going to maneuver this up even more, and I'm going to move it down because I want to get this bottom area. So I'm going to actually move around my paper and grab my stencil adapter. I want this one to kind of come off the page a little, so I'm going to do that. And I see how they kind of overlap there a little bit too much. So I'm going to just shift this down one more so I've got a little bit more space. And as you can see, it makes it really easy to move that stencil around because of the adapter, and it gives me the chance to really customize where I want these stencils to lay on my background. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull that off, and you can see as I go and I can keep moving it around, I can just get small portions of it, small little corner up here if I want. I can get a full one right here, and I'll just keep moving it around and adding to it. And at the end, I'll be able to build a scrapbook page on top of that I like. But I want to show you how you can actually just pre-do your pages, pre-build your pages, and keep in mind maybe the size photo that you might want to have printed out or to use. Now, I'm someone that likes black and white photos, so for me, building a scrapbook page without knowing the colors is not something that's really out of the realm for me to try. So this is one I did with more colors. Same idea, background is full of the snowflakes, but the idea was to build my scrapbook page, and then when the time comes and I have my photos, I could either do one big 5x7 right here, I could do two smaller ones, I could do a series of 3 or 4 along here, and then I can add additional embellishments as I go. But I've got my background ready to go, I've got everything kind of laid out and spaced out so that I can immediately get to making. So that's another idea for you with the scrapbooking. Now let's move more into a different thing outside of paper altogether. Now, one of my big things that I've been trying to kind of figure out what surfaces we can actually use with the stencils. Obviously, you can do it on top of paper, other types of materials that are similar to paper, like our texture rolls. But realistically, I've been trying to test it out on fabrics and canvas and things like that. And you kind of have to be okay with a little bit of room for error, we'll say. But I personally have loved how these projects are coming out that I've been trying on different types of materials. So first thing I'm going to do is show you one that I did, and then I'm going to actually demo one for you. So I took the Doodle Trees, finding it real quick. I took the Doodle Trees stencils right here, and this is a canvas tote. You can get them pretty much anywhere. Any craft store is going to have a canvas tote that are plain. They come in different colors. And I knew that I was going to be doing distress inks because I wanted some vibrant colors. If you're going to be working on materials like this, you're definitely going to want to go with like a permanent ink. I tried these out with distress just to see what it would look like, and I was really pleased with it. But I personally, if I wanted this to have a little bit more longevity to it, I would be sticking with a permanent ink. But what I did is I laid my canvas tote on top of the sticky grid so that it would hold that in place while I was stenciling. And then I took each layer of this and I kind of free-handed this and put it down, held it in place with my hands, and went over each of these with a blending tool and a blending foam brush, and just went over it a couple times with my color. Now, one thing I do want to say, when you're working with canvas bags or fabric bags, I would always suggest putting something in so that you don't get ink or paint or whatever it might be seeping through the material, because it is a porous material, so it's going to seep through. Not so much with the inks, but definitely when you're working with paint. So this obviously not something I can throw in the washing machine because these are water soluble, but something that I can use as a fun gift bag for the holidays. If I had used permanent inks, I think I'd be a little bit more safe with those. And then I thought it would be really fun to take some embroidery floss and add little stitching, and you can add in sequins to make them look like Christmas tree decorations. You could add little stars on here. You could even stitch in like somebody's name. If you want it to be more of a holiday tote that you carry around while you're Christmas shopping, or if you are someone that needs to pick up stuff from the store and you just want to throw something in a bag real quick, or if you want to do like a gift, like a customized gift, you could put someone's name on here, put these under the Christmas tree, whatever you might be celebrating with, you can pick different types of stencils to decorate with. So that's one idea if you want to just make for the holidays and do really cool gift bags. But you can also use them to create actual gifts. So this one is on a smaller tote bag, and this is a chapter 4 stencil called Heart Wreath. And Heart Wreath is probably one of my favorites that we've come out with because it's so delicate and beautiful. And you can see all of those fun details on those florals in there. But I think what I love about this one is I absolutely am going to go back in and embroider this, especially on the more detailed areas where I can add really fun French knots, things like that. Or if I want to stitch in these lines on the flower just to make it more vibrant. And then I think I'm going to try to hand stitch somebody's name right here. So definitely can use the stencils for these. You just have to kind of be patient and you have to kind of freehand them to an extent. I personally was doing it like this. These take a little bit of time, which is why I'm not doing it on camera. But I will show you how I started this. So in order to kind of give myself the ability to use the stencils in the same position, I have to move this down a little bit. I did it like this, just so that I knew when I placed my stencil down each time, while it may not be perfectly flush, it was going to layer them up in the same spot from each time, and then I could hold it and go through and do each layer. You can also, because it's fabric, you can use some kind of like a tape to hold down the stencils because fabric is not as flush as paper, so you're going to probably need a little bit of something extra to hold it in place. But I did both of these first try and didn't have any issues. You just have to have patience and go slow and hold it in place as you go through each section. But as you can see, you get a really beautiful end result. Now, one I am going to show you on camera how I did is little gift bags. So this is one using our holly wreath, and this is what holly wreath looks like right here. Love this one. Love a good wreath around the holidays. Holly wreath I chose to kind of offset in the corner of this bag, and then if you want, you could go back in and stamp in a sentiment if you so please. I was like gonna probably do a tag off of this, but then you can kind of fill the baggie up, and then you've got this beautiful wreath on there. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Like I said earlier, you do want to put something inside. I just use a piece of cardstock personally. You just want to put it inside the bag so that it doesn't seep through to the other side. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit. Something I do also recommend having on hand when you're doing this is kind of like a heat tool just to quickly dry acrylic paint. Acrylic paint dries incredibly fast to begin with, but this will allow you the ability to speed up a process because this is actually all acrylic paints. All 3 layers I used right there. So I just dried in between each layer just to make it faster for myself. And when you're doing kind of any paint on a fabric, you're
You don't want to get too much paint on your sponge because then it'll bleed underneath the stencil. So definitely bear that in mind. You just want to use the stencil sparingly. I am looking for my snowflakes. I want to do the snowflakes. So I'm going to use the second layer in the snowflakes, which is a little bit more detailed. I'm just going to use a spare piece of paper off to the side real quick that I can work on top of. So first thing you're going to do, when I'm working on these, I'm not using my adapters to hold things in place just because I find I want to like put them at an angle. I do use the sticky grid to hold my project in place, and if I were at home, would probably iron this flat first. You want a flat surface when you're working on these, so I'll just make sure that I really flatten that out before I start adding the paint on. And I'm just going to go kind of at an angle so that it looks like the snowflakes coming up from the side. And I think I want to do a red snowflake on here. So I'm going to get out some of my hibiscus paint. And I've got a sea sponge here. And I like using the sea sponge because I can really see immediately how well it's taken into the fabric. You might want to do 2 layers of paint and just wait for it to dry in between, wash off the stencil because paint will stay on here very quickly. So you definitely want to get this in water pretty much right away. A little soap and water comes right off. I underestimated how much paint I was going to need for this, so I need to put a little bit more right here. You can see that my project underneath is not moving, and I'm just firmly holding my stencil in place, but what's really nice is that sticky grid is holding the project so it's not moving or fudging at all, which helps a lot in keeping the stencil from moving. And because it is such like a thick surface, it is hard to use the adapter. Not impossible. If you were going to do multiple layers, I would try to get the adapter lined up just so that you can line up each of the stencils. But as you can see, I'm kind of doing mine at an angle anyway, so I don't think that would have worked well in my favor. And I probably should have masked off underneath so my sticky grid didn't get dirty, because I can see it's starting to get a little dirty on the edges. That won't ruin it. I just need to remember for next time. And now I'm telling you, so you remember should you try this. Okay. I think I've got a good layer on there. So I'm just going to peel this away. And I've got that lovely little Christmas feeling right there. And I could go in and add more. I'm just putting my stencil into this water so it starts to soften up there and not to dry onto my stencil. I also recommend the same if you're using sponges. Throw those into water right away. Otherwise they will dry on your sponge and it's not so pretty. So what I was saying is I probably would have I should have masked that off and I didn't. But it won't ruin it. It'll still be good. I would leave the paper in personally and then take a heat tool to this and just go over it for a minute. I would make sure to keep moving my heat around. You can also let them air dry. Let's say you just wanted to keep going all the way through. I'm gonna pull this up a little bit. You can let them air dry and then just keep kind of mass producing them. So you can have, while they're air drying one layer, then you can then go back and do the second layer once they're all dry. So again, it's one of those things if you're making a bunch of gifts for teachers or for the classrooms or whatever, whoever you, coworkers, then this is something you could do quickly and easily. Stick some gift cards in, some candies, some hot cocoa, tie them up, add a little bit of like tinsel ribbon and a tag with some kind of holiday sentiment on it. And you've got a bunch of really fun customized gift bags to give out. So that's one of my favorite things to do with paint. and definitely something that's really nice all year round. Let me move these out of the way. Now we're going to move on to more like more at my speed when you need to make a quick gift. And let's say you're like, okay, well, I have a holiday party to go to, or I have a birthday party, and you don't have time to go to the store, and you've got 10 minutes real quick to throw something together, and let's say you just have white bags at home. Stencil them. It takes your white bag and immediately changes it into whatever you want to be. So I've obviously used more seasonal ones right here, but you could easily use this heart on here and then stamp in something for a birthday or for a baby shower or a bridal shower. You could use any of the stencils really, and just put them on. I put mine on the sticky grid, which I'll show you. So with these are fairly larger bags. So I put them a little bit further down on the sticky grid and just laid everything down nice and flat. And in this case, I did use the adapter because it's paper. So I do want, and there's not as much forgiveness on paper as there is on fabric sometimes, I feel like. So what I would do is I would lay down my first stencil. Obviously, this isn't going to line up perfectly because I don't have the bag right where I did, but you get the gist. I would adjust my bag right there. And I just went through each layer and changed it out. And it worked out really nice. This was one of those ones where I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, but as long as you go down below where kind of these crepe paper-esque handles are, then it's all flat. So as long as you're working on the flat portion of a bag, it's going to work out really well. And then for the stencil portion, what I would recommend, because you can move this tool either way, is I would take this portion of the bag right here and I would tuck it underneath. And then that way you have a smooth surface right here, and then you can use your stamp plate like so. Put your sentiment there, and then you'll be able to stamp so that you're not getting any interference with this back piece underneath when you're stenciling or stamping, really, for that matter. The stencil, you don't feel it as much, but the stamping, it can be a problem. So if you're having to do it in the center of the bag, I would just do that little trick and tuck it underneath the tool and then lay it flat. Just makes it a lot easier. You can also take these, it's getting a little messy. You can also take these, and I know Jess Slack has done a video on this, and I just wanted to show like how beautiful these are. You can do all 4 of the doodle trees right there, and then you can just die cut tags out of it, and then you've got your tags. You can do it the same with the tartan. You could do even with the snowflake and just do like the side like we showed with the card where you've only got a portion of the snowflake on the tag. You could even do it with the wreaths and just do a portion like this of half the wreath on the tag. Really easy way to do DIY tags for gifts. You can also, because this allows you to move things horizontally a bunch of different ways, then you're kind of golden in that regard. And then the last thing I want to show that you can do with these stencils around the holidays, and really anytime for that matter, is use our effects range. So we talked already about crystal paste, but I wanted to show you what it can look like. So the one on the right here is all just ink. And then this one right here is ink, but then this layer, I took some paste and mixed it in with our creamy acrylic paints. And these, it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but these in person are raised. So I've added something a little bit dimensional to the wreath by that layer, just adding some of my dimensional paste mixed with my creamy acrylic right here. Went across the stencil with a palette knife and then just set it aside to dry. So you can just take one layer and add in something like, I could have done my pearlescent medium and had a little pearl sheen with my acrylic. I could have just gone over it with the prism paste or the crystal glaze, and both have a really beautiful, vibrant kind of iridescent look to them. I have, or I thought I had, let me find it. I have one, yes, here it is. I have this one just so I can show you what the prism paste looks like. So the prism is similar to the crystal glaze in that it adds a nice kind of sheen on top, but this one's got more of an iridescent glow to it, and it has actual flakes in it. So if you want something that is a little bit more shimmery, we'll say, instead of sparkly, and there is a difference between those, I think. And this one also has those iridescent flakes in it. So that's the prism paste. This is obviously not a holiday die, but it's something I just had where I have the prism paste done, and I wanted to show you what that could look like because I've shown you what the crystal glaze looks like. But I think that should hopefully help you get ready for the holidays and a bunch of different ideas on what you can do with these stencils for the holidays.
Okay, well, that does it for me. I really hope you enjoyed those ideas. So whether you are looking to just do some quick DIY bags, you can throw these on the Stencil and Stamp Tool and get yourself some really cute inspirational makes. Then we've got DIY gifts. I love a good tote bag, and being able to customize these and add in stitching details if you want. Love this. Love the idea of doing permanent inks with it and then going in with some embroidery, being able to give those special details to something. You could do little treat bags with the wreaths or the doodle trees or whatever your heart fancies. I love this one. Was so quick and easy, and something that you can easily customize under a matter of minutes. Or you just have some quick gift tags or some, specialized gift wrap that you might want to use. All of these are just a few of the ideas I went through today, and they are all something that I think you could easily do in a matter of minutes, which if you're like me, you kind of sometimes only have that to get creative during the holidays. So please let me know if you end up using any of these ideas. I'd love to see them on our socials. So use the hashtag #MySizzixStory so we can see them and share them. And if you have any questions, please just leave them in the comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Until then, happy crafting, and I'll talk to you soon.